This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. My guest today is the host of NDE TV, Pegi Robinson. Pegi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Heather.
It's great to have you. I have watched NDE TV many, many times. I've also heard your personal story. And while you have interviewed hundreds of people, you also have had your own near-death experience, and that's what we're going to cover today. So can you step us through your story?
I've had two near-death experiences. I drowned when I was 5, and I had an ectopic pregnancy at 25. So I'll just go in chronological order. If you want to go ahead and start.
Sounds good.
Okay. When I was 5 years old, what I remember first about this NDE is I'm sitting on the floor, cross-legged, playing with my Barbie dolls in my room. It's quiet, normal day, and my mom walks through the door. I can see as clear as day. She throws this dish towel over her shoulder and says, "It's hot." She says, "Let's go swimming." She says, "You and John," it's my brother. She says, "You go on ahead, and me and Terry, my sister, will be down after a bit." I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and I was the tag-along brat that nobody looked out for. There's always trying to get rid of me. So it wasn't like, take care of little sister, when my brother and I are running down to the pond to go swimming. And we were so excited because we always went down as a family, mom and dad and the 5 kids, to go swimming or fishing in this pond right down the road from our house. And so that freedom was really cool. At 5 years old, like, we get to go down by ourselves. And so I couldn't keep up with my brother. Like, he just took off. He just wanted to go swimming. So I get down and he's already at the far end of the pond, diving in, doing laps to the center of the pond and back. He just keeps doing these laps. So I'm standing there bored by myself, and I'm looking up the house. Mom and my sister Terry, they're not coming yet. And I'm thinking, well, I really want to go play in the water. So I wade in and I move my foot around the bottom. I remember this just like so vividly. And I thought, well, I got to be careful, because before my mom was like, be careful, watch for drop offs. And she'd have some of the older kids with me to grab my arm if I slip in, because I can only dog paddle a little. I couldn't swim like the other kids. So I'm moving my feet around, watching, pushing that hurry up. And then I see a board floating in the water. And I think, I bet I could use that as a raft, and I could do laps like my brother's doing from center to back. So I lay my little belly on there and I go out to the center of the pond, and my brother's, back getting ready to do another lap. And I yell, "Hey, John, look at me." Immediately he starts swimming real fast. Now, most people would think, oh, he's going to rescue her. Little sister can't swim, going to get her out of the water. No, that's not how my family thought. He come out, and just as he was almost close to me, I realized what was going to happen. He was going to take my board. He always took my toys. And he did. He grabbed that board. I'm in the center of the pond. And he goes back doing his laps on my board. I'm underwater. I'm sinking. I'm in the middle of the pond, and there's nobody there to help me. And I tried so hard, and I can remember my little eyes on top of that water, just struggling underneath. And then I was under, no help, all alone. I mean, it was so lonely. It was so scary to be somewhere where nobody can hear you yell for help.
Right.
Nobody knows you need help. You are alone. Nobody is going to rescue you. I struggled to get back up. The water was so muddy brown that I couldn't tell anymore which was going down deeper, sideways, up. And I'm like, I'm going like this, but am I going down further? Am I going sideways? I'm lost in this brown. And I started screaming underwater. And I'm choking. I'm thinking about my mom and my sister up to the house. Next thing wishing, they'd hurry up, wishing they were here. I seen them as my protectors, and I'm wishing they were here. Suddenly, I'm at the ceiling, of our kitchen, looking down at them. I didn't hear anything. I just heard their thoughts. I felt their emotions. It was like you were inside somebody else's body, feeling I felt their concentration. Should I take this? Should I bring this? Just that concentration, not really words, just their essence. I was like, I felt them. And then I'm back in the water. And now my throat hurts so bad. It felt like it was just going to burst. The next thing I know, it's like when you wake up from a nap and you're like, oh, where am I? What time of day it is? Kind of that feeling. You're so relaxed. The kind of like, and the water is no longer that muddy brown. It's a light, transparent, beautiful green. And I could see through this water just fine. It's like a light was in there. And I'm now drifting down further, which before would have terrified me. But my thought as a 5-year-old is, my parents lied to me. Why did they do that? There's no such thing as drowning. Like I was scared and struggling for nothing because I'm fine. I can breathe. I'm fine. And I thought, I can't wait to tell the other kids there's no such thing as drowning. And then the fish are bumping into me, these big fish. And I was fascinated. I could see their mouth, and their fins moving in and out and their tail. And wow, this is so cool. Because when we were kids, when we were fishing with Dad, we'd try to grab fish with our bare hands. We never could. And so it was so close to see them. But then I got, wait a minute, what's wrong here? Why aren't the fish afraid of me? Then a vision opens up. It's like suddenly you have a memory, but it's like it's on a TV screen because it's just clear as a bell and you're watching it. And I'm watching this vision of me in the past at my house and living room looking in a fishbowl. And while we were gone that day, Mom had put pink rocks in the fishbowl and a little plastic treasure chest. And I was thinking, why aren't those fish afraid of this treasure chest? Because I put my hand in there, they're afraid of me. And there's this memory. And then the memory, that like flash was gone. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. I'm back with these fish in this pond. I get it now. The fish know something I don't. I'm dead. I'm like, well, I don't want to be a dead girl in this pond. And I had a vision of a future. I thought my family, I could see them clear as day, going down the road past this pond from our house to get on the highway to goes to Marietta one way or Belpre the other. And I see my family in our white station wagon and the 4 kids in there with Mom and Dad. And then every time they pass that pond, they'd often say, there's Peg. That's where Peg is. Like I would always be at the bottom of this pond. Like they would never find me. That's what I thought would happen now. And I thought, well, I don't want to be a dead girl bottom of this pond. And with that thought that I didn't want this to be here, I started raising up. And then my eyes are like this at the top of the water. Now, I realized now I'd left my body. This was my soul now. I had left my body at this point. And I thought, I could see this beautiful sunny day or down below the water. I'm bored with below. It's like I had a choice. What do you want? I want to go above. So I went above and I thought, well, I don't want to go too far. I'm like, are you afraid of heights? That's kind of dumb. You're dead. Like, well, I'm getting used to this. I can remember this dialogue just as pure as day. I can remember this dialogue in my head. And so I thought, I'll go to the treetops and then I'll go further later, but I just got to get used to this. So now I'm hovering straight above where I had drowned, right in the center of the pond, hovering over the pond. And there's trees lining the train tracks and there's highway on the other side. There's my brother down there doing laps. And I look around, I think this is really cool because we were poor and we'd go to the fair and there would be helicopter rides. We could never afford that. And I always wanted to see, this is so cool. It's like I got a free ride here.
Right.
And this is so cool. I could see the Ohio River over top that goes on the other side of the highway. I could look all the way down the train tracks on both ends. I could see clear on top of the hill for our house, past our house that goes up and bends. And it was awesome. And I thought, well, since I can hover, I bet I can fly. Which way should I go? And I'm looking like, do I go right towards Belpre? Do I go left from Marietta? And then I heard a female voice, a certain distance, like I could hear where she was. And she said, "Don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back." And I thought, go back? That's not how death works. You don't go back. I thought, who is this talking to me? And I thought, you know what? I'm dead. I don't have to listen to adults anymore. Because it sounded like a young female adult. I don't have to listen to adults. And you know what else? I don't have to eat my vegetables. I don't have to go in at bedtime. I thought, I'll be good for a little while because I don't know who this is watching me. I don't see her, but I'm going to go. And so I did. I went down towards Belpre, and there was a 2-story white house. And I went to the front door, and all of a sudden it's like I saw right through the front door, and there's old people sitting around a table, and they glanced at me when I was at the doorway, and they're all older people. And a guy at the end of the table looks at me, and so I think these were ghosts. And I know how it sounds. I can only report to you what I saw. And he turns to me, and I was raised. I was born in 1961, so this is 1966. I was raised, you don't interrupt adults when they're talking. And so I was shy to speak because they stopped and looked at me. And I said, "I'm looking for kids to play with." I was shy. And he said, "Check the graveyards." What in the world? And I have these memories later on. I'm like, what in the world? Why would anybody say such a thing? And okay, that must be where dead kids hang out. Because I'm a dead kid. I want kids to play with. I don't want to hang out with these old adults that died. And so I go back towards the pond because you have to go back that way to go to Marietta. And I see 2 boys walking along the highway, and they're carrying fishing poles and a bucket. And I'm like, huh? I'm walking along. "What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? What are you doing? Bugging them." And they were ignoring me, just like my siblings always did. I'm like, well, this is no fun. Well, the younger one, we started having this telepathic communication. He says, we've been fishing. We're running late. We're on our way home. And it's like, I'm talking to him in his head. And so I thought, okay, well, they can't see me. I'm getting that. And so I go flying over the highway. I will never forget flying over the highway. It was I would have memories of that as a kid. I was like, I remember flying over this highway. I would never tell anybody, but why do I remember flying over the highway? So flying over the highway. And then I dipped down into what's called West Side as you first enter Marietta. It's the poorest section of town. It's where my grandparents lived. And my aunt lived on the corner of this street, and I'm headed towards my grandma's house, my grandma Johnson. But on the opposite of my grandma's street is this yard, and there's kids out there playing ball. And I was running around playing ball with those kids. And I was like, this is no fun. They can't see me. So I went on the left down the street towards my grandma's, her house on the right. I went in and out of houses, just in and out, drifted in and out. And then at some point, now I don't, because I can't do chronological, because I would have this memory of all this. But then I also have a memory. I'm hovering over the pond, and I look down and I see my brother doing those laps. And I see my mom and my sister are now at the pond. They're sitting on a bed sheet, and they're looking at each other as they're rubbing the lotion on. And I'm like, they didn't even know I died. And I felt feelings about that. And then those emotions be washed away. It was like whenever I have intense emotion, like it takes me a long time to calm down, right? I get all worked up. Not then. It was like I'd have this intense emotion. It would get so, like I see my brother, and I'm thinking, he didn't need that board, and I died because he took my board. I have this rage, and I'd be like washed away from me. And so I'm looking at my mom, my sister, and I feel this jealousy that I'll never be old enough to have that mature conversation with my mom like my sisters have. And I felt really sad about that. And then it was like washed away. It's like, oh, okay. And then as I'm hovering over this pond and I'm looking to my right at my mom's sister and my left at my brother, a voice says to me, well, at first it's like before a voice said to me, it was like I had this sudden knowing my family didn't love me. And I responded to it with, oh, I didn't know that. It was like a knowledge download. I didn't know that. And then a voice audibly said, inside me, not like far away, a distance like that woman in the beginning, but it was like inside me, voice clearly said, God sends children here to be loved. That is why he sends them here. Now I'm this 5-year-old little brat. And I'm like, you just show me my family doesn't love me. And then you tell me that. That's why God sends him here, but I wasn't loved. Well, that's not fair. This huge feeling of injustice grew in me that I contribute today. I interviewed you earlier, and I'm just like screaming with this injustice, right? And I think that's where it come from.
Yeah.
I think when I look back, that I think that strong feeling of injustice grew in me in that moment. Like, this isn't fair. And I thought, this isn't fair. And then the next thing I know, I am waking up. I realize I'm being carried over my brother John's right shoulder, and my head is towards his back, and I start coughing up water. And as I'm dangling, he's carrying me up to the house. I see my mom and my sister Terry's up ahead on his right, and they're almost to the train tracks that is at the bottom of the hill right before you shoot up to our house. It's on the right. And I see them, and I feel their emotions. My mom, my sisters, they're walking. And I feel my brother's emotions. He's irritated. I'm thrown up on his back. He says, Mom, can I put her down now? And I see my mom, my sister both look at the same time as I'm dangling upside down. And she goes, because he was carrying my dead body up to the house. And she nodded yes and took his big sigh of relief. But they both turned right back around and walked on up to the house. And my brother set me down on my feet and he ran after him. And like that, it all disappeared. So now I am standing, I say sick as a dog, like a drowned rat, at on this road, a belly full of pond water, with this knowledge. My family doesn't love me. That just confirms it. And I think, why would I walk up to that house to a family who don't love me? I was just flying and having fun. I think I want to go back. And just as I took a step, I decided I would go back. And I also thought, my family will be like, what happened to her? She was fine. How did she end up back in the pond? I thought, I don't care. I felt like it was my life, my choice. Like I was ripped off by giving a family don't love me. Now that I know that, why would I walk up that road? And so I took one step to go back to the pond. I thought, drowning really hurts. I know that now, but I'm not going to fight it this time. So I can go back where I was. I took one step back to the pond, and the voice I heard earlier, the young female that says, no, don't. If they find you soon, you might go back. She now appeared. She was hovering over the road, and it was like the outline it was white light and of this flowing dress, these sleeves that dangle at the end and at the bottom. And she says, again, no, don't. I said, why? They don't love me. Like I say, I was a little brat. I said, why? They don't love me. And she says, well, you'll have a lot of love someday. I said, where will I find it? And she pointed towards Belpre. And so I went up to the house. I went in the house, didn't see anybody. I don't know where they were. And it was just a little house. Like they must have been in the kitchen talking or something. So I went in the house and I went to bed. I got out of my wet bathing suit, got on my nightgown, crawled in bed, and I reached down and got a nursery rhyme book and I flipped through. And I was too young to read, but I had memorized, the stories. And so I stopped at the old woman that lived in a shoe. And I knew how it went. The old woman lived in a shoe, had so many children, she didn't know what to do. And I turned the page, and there's a page of beds all lined up. And I thought, that looks like maybe it was an orphanage. Like maybe she took care of kids that didn't have parents. And I thought about what I just experienced. And I thought, maybe that's what I'll do someday. Maybe I'll love unloved kids like me. Maybe I'll have an orphanage. Or maybe I'll have a bunch of children of my own. I don't know. But I want to love unloved kids like me. That was the drowning. And to look back, now I'm 62 years old, and I look back at that and I just find the truth in it. Back, how many years ago, I had fostered 60 kids. We adopted 10.
Wow. Oh, wonderful.
And we decided, my boys were grown, and we turned the living room we had that had a pool table and all that into I'm going to turn this into one big room for the girls and for Christmas. And I painted the walls purple. I put up big flower trim. We went and spent a fortune and bought canopy beds for these 8 girls, and the matching white off-white dressers, and the beautiful canopy tops. I always wanted a canopy bed, was too poor. And before we showed it to the kids, I stood back and admired it, and that memory come back of that nursery rhyme, like, oh my God, that came true.
I was going to ask you why God would tell you that you weren't loved, but now it makes sense because you made up for that when you were an adult.
Yeah, it was like my destiny.
Right.
And I stood there and I said, oh my God, like this was planned. It was just like gave me chills. And I stood there. It's like, how can this happen? I didn't know life was like this. Like you have a plan for your life. And I feel like I was just seeing this
Mm-hmm.
page. They didn't have the canopy beds and all this in that picture, but it was like, I lived my life to fulfill this and didn't even remember this. And then a thought come to my head, just like it was planted there. And my ex-husband always said, our property is shaped like a boot. And I, God, I stood there in the base, like, God,
Wow.
you are so funny. The old woman lived in a shoe, and our property, like, God, you are so funny. And
Wow.
these things can, I think, only come with age. These aha moments to see our life's path and how it all led to something that it was always meant to be. And I've said, watching so many and hearing so many near death experiences, I have just come to the conclusion that I think that maybe our lives when we are, coming to earth to be born, that it is like the box of puzzle that you pick up off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are born, it's like the box is open and the pieces are scattered everywhere. And it's like, go find your life, like go find your destiny. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like every struggle, everything, every hardship, everything I went through as a child, being abused and neglected, and then becoming a foster parent, and you work in shore services, and then end up adopting these kids. It's like this was all meant to be. Like, but we're not allowed to
Yes.
see it. That's how I've come to view it.
And it's hard when you're in it, yes, to see it. But if we can have faith, having learned, by listening to people like you and other near death experiencers, that it does seem like so many times when we have difficulties, they're actually, it's hard to say blessings, but they do help us to grow into better people.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like everything that was so hard that I went through with the child
Hmm.
abuse and neglect and feeling unloved.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, and I've had people after a talk say, God would never say that your family didn't love you. I said, but it was the truth.
And the hard part is when you look at your life and how sad and tragic it is hard to know why sometimes these things are placed in our life because there seems to be a lot of injustice sometimes.
When I turned 18, my birthday, I promised God, and I promised myself, I said, I will never forget what it was like to be an abused child. And someday, some way, I will help abused kids. And I had a vision then of, do you remember the black and white negatives on film?
Hmm.
It would come in a roll. And it was just like that went in front of my vision, like a black and white roll negative. And there are faces of all these kids. And something told me that it wouldn't stop with me. It will always continue. Child abuse will always continue, And it was like when these people in war, the day they get out of the camp, they have this guilt knowing others are going to be continuing to suffer and you're getting out free. It was like that. And I thought, I will never forget. I've got to take what I went through. Of course, I had no memory of the drowning or any of that then. I thought, I got to take what I went through and do something. And I ended up being the youngest foster parent in our neighboring county, in Marietta, the county I drowned in. And I ended up having 60 foster kids. Like I say, I adopted 10. But I did not remember this until after my second NDE at 25 years old.
So let's get into that one. Share what happened with that.
Okay. So I was 25 years old,
Hmm.
And I had my two little boys. And my second one, my third son, was actually biological. My older sister, her disabled. She's disabled, and we adopted her son. So I had three little boys at home, and I was praying for twins. And I was so happy because my husband at the time, we were married 16 years, but it was like early into our marriage. And he had forced me to get my tubes tied when I was 20, or he was going to divorce me and take the kids. And I always wanted a lot of children. I always told everybody I was going to have at least 10 kids. And so I was heartbroken. When I was 25, I found out I could have that reversed. And you might as well just told me I won $1 billion lottery. That's how happy I was. And then I found out I was praying for twins. And so I was so happy. Plus, we had lived near his family in a trailer, and it was like Peyton Place. It was alcoholism and fighting and domestic violence from his parents. It was horrible. And so we had just bought property, and we were getting ready to build a brand new home. So here I am, my three little boys, pregnant for twins. We just bought this property. We're getting to build a brand new house. I come from poverty, and we're building a brand new house. It's like, and I'm standing on the hill thinking that day, like, God, how did I go from, where I was to here? And this is a week before my NDE, and it was Easter Sunday. And as I'm in this bliss state, thinking, God, how did I go from that to this? Suddenly I hear my oldest little boy, Matthew, yell, Mom, Jeremy! Jeremy's my youngest biological. And I got frozen in fear. I couldn't move. My husband ran to the woods looking for the boys, trying to find the sound of where they're coming from. I immediately started praying. I thought, God, I need to be there right now. Not in the time it takes my legs to run. Right now, I need to be there right now. I just started praying. Then all of a sudden, now I hadn't remembered the drowning yet, but now I compare it to, it was like hovering over the pond. I was hovering over the field. I was out of my body as I'm praying. I'm hovering. I got this wisdom. I got this knowledge. I knew suddenly what happened to my son. And it was, the creek is normally just ankle deep, but we've had a lot of melting snow and rain, and the water's up and it's swift, but it's not too deep that he couldn't just stand up and walk out of there. Immediately I started praying to my son, Jeremy. It was just all instant. It was like gut reactions, mother's instincts. I said, Jeremy, it's not that deep. Calm down, stand up, walk out of there. And then I slowly walked down. I'm so scared because I'm sure I'm going to find my son dead. And I can't deal with this. Like, oh, God, you don't give us more than we can handle. I'll be no good to nobody. I'll go like catatonic or something. I'll be good to nobody. My son dies. And then all of a sudden I see Jeremy, just as his dad reaches the creek and finally finds where the boys are. Little Jeremy's head pops up. And he don't even look at his dad. He looks straight at me, and he walks through the field right to me. And he looks right at me. He says, Mom, was you worried about me? Of course, I fall to my knees. Jeremy, you're my baby, right? I never talked about that. I was full of shame that my son almost drowned, And also, too, during that prayer, I said, God, if you have to take one of my kids today, take my twins. Don't take my baby, Jeremy. I want my twins. I love them, but don't take my baby, Jeremy. So I had guilt over that. So I didn't talk about it for years. Well, a week later, I'm having pain. I call my doctor. I think it's a tubal pregnancy. Peggy, I did the ultrasound in the office. Both babies are in the uterus. It's not a tubal pregnancy. Because I was told when I got the reversal surgery that every woman has 5% chance of tubal pregnancy. This surgery will give you 5% more. And I thought, I gambled and I lost. And he's Peggy, it's not tubal. It's just, the scar tissue where you had C-sections before. It's, 2 babies in there. You're growing. I was starting to show, already at 2 months. And then a couple of days went by, I called him back. I was like, the pain's so bad. I'm on the couch. I can't get up and walk. You're fine. By Friday, I told my husband, we home from work, I said, take the boys down to your mom's. I called her. She's going to make you guys dinner. I can't get up. I'm in bed. I can't get up. So then I called him and I said, I'm bleeding now. He's down there having dinner with his mom. I said, leave the boys there. Come get me taken to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, the pain got so bad that I knew something serious was wrong. And suddenly I knew I was dying. It was that intuition that there was no question. Of course, I did not have a relationship right with my first husband that I could tell him anything. So I kept it quiet. So I just said a silent prayer, God, I know I'm dying. Something told me, as weird as it sounds, wherever my pain just went, that's where I'm going. And I said, God, if I die right now, my husband's going to have to pull over alongside the road and he's going to be freaking out. We're almost to the hospital. Just let me live long enough to get to the hospital so he's not alone on the highway. We got to the hospital. They no more got me in a wheelchair and I died. How I knew is, well, I told the nurse, I said, I think it's due to pregnancy. I said, I'm going to vomit or I'm going to pass out. I don't know which. She gave me a little blue bowl, put it in my lap, and pushed me to go find a room, left him stay to fill out the papers. We just started down that long hall, and my hands are on the armrests. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up. I want to get that bowl, right? I don't want to get it all over me. I couldn't lift a finger. I lost contact with my body. I can't lift a finger. That is a strange feeling. All of a sudden, you can't pick up your hand. You can't even wiggle a finger. I'm like, oh crap, what's going on? So I thought I was just going to pass out. So, I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out right now. All of a sudden, my chin hit my chest. I was dead. How do I know I was dead? Suddenly, I am in a tunnel, and it's dim, it's narrow, and there's this like you hear on TV a rocket taking off, a spaceship, or the sound, you hear that pressure.
Yes.
It was real loud, and it's dim, and I'm looking around like, oh no, I just died. Like it's taking me somewhere, and I'm like, I got to get back to my boys. Like, how can I run away? There's got to be a way out of here. And you're not getting out of this. I mean, it was taking me so fast. I'm way too far. I'm never going to get out of here. And I remember so vividly crying, saying, I'm so sorry, my children. I didn't want to leave you. I have 3 little boys, and my ex is an alcoholic. His family's alcoholic. Are they going to go stay with my mother and live the hell I went through? And I'm just beyond devastated. And so this loud wind speed, and then shot like a rocket way up through space. I never now hear a knock. Like I felt like that I was going through another galaxy. It was giving me the feeling like you're going so far away. Then all of a sudden, I'm in complete white. It's perfectly still and quiet. And it's such a contrast from the fast, loud, slamming, rocket to just perfectly calm, still. It would be like if there was a room that had white ceiling, white walls, white floor, but also in the middle is white, which we don't have that here. It was white in the middle. I was like contained in a box of light, like in this room of white, and I'm suspended. I'm hovering. I look down, but I don't see me. I feel just like me. I have me as much as you have you, there was nothing diminished. And only this heightened awareness because I'm scared because I just left Earth. And the first thing I thought was, wow, it's real. The whole God, Jesus, Bible thing. I mean, I wouldn't see anybody or experience anything yet, but I'm not dead in a coffin like the scary movies, scratching to get my way out. I'm not worm meat, I'm somewhere. So it's real. And I'm talking to God as if I'm praying without seeing anybody, as if like we all do when we pray on earth. And I just start praying to God. It's like, God, you need to send people back. They need to know this is real. People are getting tired of the Bible. They don't read it anymore and they don't believe this stuff anymore. Maybe if you send people back and let them know this is real. That's all I thought. I didn't know things would go on and I would experience more. And that now, you see, all these decades later, I'd be sitting here talking to you. That's because I thought that's it for me. And so, and I thought, why am I alone? Am I going to be alone for eternity? Did I do something wrong? I don't remember. Like, isn't there supposed to be like people in heaven? And I look over to the right and I think somebody's there. And I see a real faint outline of like shoulder or head, just like from like waist up. And then I see it was like a panel of people. They're standing like shoulder to shoulder facing me, and they're so quiet. They're not moving. I said, who is that? Who's there? And I compare it to like if you opened your door at night and it's so dark, like somebody's there, but you can't see, only it was too light. Like the bright white, like kept you from seeing. Like, who's there? And my eyes squinted and scanned as if, because you feel like you still have eyes. You feel like you got arms and hands and everything. And I'm squinting and I'm like, who is that? And then I see was one panel standing like a jury, and then another was sitting up front, like in a straight row. And there's 5 in the front. So that one in the middle, I say, that has to be God. And so I thought I had a complaint department. And I start screaming at God. And that's not something that you think that you will do when you go to heaven. When you die, is that you're going to cuss God out. But that's exactly what I did. I not cussed him. I told him off. I cannot stay here. Like, hell no, I won't go. I've got kids to raise. And then, so here I am, this feeling, this me, this, visible. All of a sudden I see across from me, a physical me. And I'm watching it. And so is this panel. We're watching her. Kind of like me on the screen now. Here's me, but then there she is, right? And I'm watching her, and she is screaming out every abuse she went through as a child to let God know, I cannot let my kids go through one thing I went through as a child. I refuse. And this scene opens up, just like this TV screen, over to my left. And it's like you had just walked into a grocery store and you see the cashier there and she's cashing out these people. And there's this little boy. I don't know who he is, but he's throwing this big fit demanding what he wants, and he wants it right now. And it seems like there was this mother standing there. I could hardly see it. There might have been a man, but I don't know. And she's like, no, you can't have that. And she was unaffected. And I realized that was God's way of letting me know. He showed me this. Like he had this technology to show me this scene that helped me understand instead of trying to talk to me that that's how you're acting. He showed me a scene that as a young mother to understand you're acting like a spoiled child. The answer is no.
Right.
It was my time. It was my time. The answer is no. So, okay, I got to try something else because I'm not done manipulating the situation. I got to calm down. So I said, okay, I know from being Catholic, because my first husband was Catholic and I converted. I know from Catholic you're omniscient. If you can prove to me, like you can see in the future, if you can prove to me that my sons would be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg, not demand, I beg to return. Then all of a sudden, I believe it was Jesus. I see a man from behind. I'm back here. And he's just standing over in this far left corner. And I was like, woof, it's just like I flew, like right beside him. And we dropped that quick. And we're over top our trailer that we were living in because we hadn't yet built our house on the property. We're over top the trailer we lived in. And my boys in the trailer shared a bedroom. They had bunk beds. And then first we see the trailer roof, and all of a sudden the roof's gone. I could see right through it. And we dipped down closer so we could hear what's going on. And my 3 boys are standing there discussing the fact that mom has died. So this is in the future. And my youngest biological, which is the middle of my 3 boys, Jeremy, the one that almost drowned a week prior to this, he says to his brother Matthew, I don't care that you say mom is dead. I want her back. And I felt his pain so bad in my chest, I retracted. And now I am back in white light. I am right in front of that panel of people and the one sitting there. Because before I was back a ways. Now I'm right at the front of them. I'm on my knees and I'm sobbing. And I realize it's not God's fault that I died. It's mine. It's my fault. I had my tubes tied. I took the chance. I got that tubal pregnancy because I did the tubal reversal. I did this to myself. It's my fault. My children are going to be raised without a mother, without mother's love and protection. This is all my fault. It's my fault my twins are dead. This is all my fault. And I am sobbing. If there's a hell, that's got to be what hell feels like. To be responsible for your children's death, for your children to be motherless. And I am beyond sobbing. And then, just like before, it's like you have this strong emotion and it's whooshed away from you. Like, okay, I accept it. Because, I've always heard that, our children will be with us someday. Like, they're old men, they die. I'll see them again. I'll just wait here in heaven for my sons. And then another fear pops up. Oh my God, what if my sons hate God because their mom was taken from them at such a young age? Because I've heard of that before. And I am back wailing, bawling, and I am sobbing now. I am in front of God, but God is sitting to the right, my right. So that would be God's left. That's not biblically correct, but that's what I saw. I saw Jesus sitting, only his feet, the bottom of his garment, on the right, my right of God. Like I say, that makes it on God's left. I never thought about this at the time. Like, well, that's not biblically correct, right? But so I am sobbing at Jesus' feet, and I now see for the first time physical me. I see my hands come up in front of my face, and I'm trying to look up at Jesus, and I cry out, who else will teach them about you? And then I'm back in that wheelchair. And I'm like, what the hell was that?
That was part 1, but we still have so much more to talk about in part 2. You can find the link in the description. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.